This next story, The Pie in the Patty Pan, is very long and it doesn't have a whole lot of pictures. We might have to cut this one in two, and a lot of the time I'm just going to be reading. But let's start out with these two pictures. Once upon a time, there was a pussycat called Ribby who invited a little dog called Duchess to tea. "Come in good time, dear Duchess," said Ribby's letter, "and we will have something so very, very nice. I am baking it in a pie dish with a pink rim. You never tasted anything so good, and you shall eat it all." "I will eat muffins, my dear Duchess," wrote Ribby. Duchess read the letter and wrote an answer. "I will come with much pleasure at 4:15, but it is strange. I was just going to invite you to come up here to supper, my dear Ribby, to eat something most delicious." "I will come very punctually, my dear Ribby," wrote Duchess, and at the end she added, "I hope it isn't a mouse." And then she thought that did not look polite, so she scratched out "isn't a mouse" and changed it to "I hope it will be fine," and gave the letter to her postman. But then she thought a great deal about Ribby's pie, and she read Ribby's letter over and over again. "I'm dreadfully afraid it will be a mouse," said Duchess to herself, "and I really couldn't eat a mouse pie. And I shall have to eat it because it's a party, and my pie is going to be veal and ham, a pink and white pie dish. And so is mine, just like Ribby's dishes. They were both bought at Tabitha Twitch Chats." Oh, here Duchess is reading the letter. Duchess went into her larder and took the pie off the shelf and looked at it. "It is ready to put into the oven. Such a lovely pie crust. And I put it in a little tin patty pan to hold up the crust, and I made a little hole in the middle with a fork to let out the steam. Oh, I do wish I could eat my own pie instead of a pie made of mouse." Duchess considered and read Ribby's letter again. "A pink and white pie dish, and you shall eat it all." "You" means me. Then Ribby is not even going to taste her pie herself? What a good idea. Why shouldn't I rush along and put my pie into Ribby's oven when Ribby isn't there? Duchess was quite delighted with her own cleverness. Ribby, in the meantime, had received Duchess's answer, and as soon as she was sure that the little dog would come, she popped her pie into the oven. There were two ovens, one above the other. Some other knobs and handles were only ornamental and not intended to open the oven. Ribby put a pie into the lower oven. The door was very stiff. "The top oven bakes too quickly," said Ribby to herself. "It is a pie with the most delicate and tender mouse minced up with bacon, and I have taken out all the bones because Duchess did nearly choke herself with a fish bone last time I had a party. She eats a little fast, rather big mouthfuls, but a most genteel and elegant little dog, infinitely superior to the company of cousin Tabitha Twitchit." Ribby put on some coal and swept up the hearth, and then she went out with a can to the well for water to fill up the kettle. Then she began to set the room in order, for it was a sitting room as well as a kitchen. She shook out the mats in the front door, and she put them straight, and the hearth rug was a rabbit skin, and she dusted the clock and the ornaments on the mantelpiece, and she polished and rubbed the tables and chairs. Then she spread a white tablecloth and set out her best china tea set, which she took out of the wall cupboard near the fireplace. The teacups were white with a pattern of pink roses, and the dinner plates were white and blue. When Ribby had laid the table, she took a jug and a blue and white dish and went down to the farm to fetch some milk and butter. When she came back, she peeped into the bottom oven and the pie looked very comfortable. Ribby put on her shawl and bonnet and went out again with a basket to the village to buy a packet of tea and a lump of sugar and a pot of marmalade. And at just the same time, Duchess came out of her house at the other end of the village. Ribby met Duchess halfway down the street, also carrying a basket covered with a cloth. They only bowed to one another. They did not speak because they were going to have a party. As soon as Duchess got around the corner out of sight, she simply ran straight away to Ribby's. Ribby went into the shop and bought what she required and came out after a pleasant gossip with Cousin Tabitha Twitchtit. Cousin Tabitha was disdainful afterwards in conversation. "A little dog indeed! Just as if there were no cats in Sowery, and a pie for afternoon tea, the very idea," said Cousin Tabitha Twitchit. Ribby went on to Timothy Baker's and bought the muffins. Then she went home. There seemed to be some sort of scuffling noise in the back of the passage as she was coming into the front door. "I trust it is not the pie. The spoons are locked up, however," said Ribby. But there was nobody there. Ribby opened the bottom door of the oven with some difficulty and turned the pie. There began to be a pleasing smell of baked mouse. Duchess, in the meantime, had slipped out the back door. It was a very odd thing that Ribby's pie was not in the oven when I put mine in, and I can't find it anywhere. I have looked all up and down the house. I put my pie into a nice hot oven at the top, and I could not turn any of the other handles, and I think they are all shams," said Duchess. "But I wish I could have removed the pie made of mouse. I cannot think what she has done with it, and I heard Ribby coming in. I had to run out the back door." Duchess went home and brushed her beautiful black coat, and then picked up a bunch of flowers in her garden as a present for Ribby, and passed the time until the clock struck 4. Ribby, having assured herself by a careful search that there was really no one hiding in the cupboard or the larder, went upstairs to change her dress. She put on a lilac silk gown for the party of embroidered muslin. "It's very strange," said Ribby. "I did not think I left the drawer pulled out. Has someone been trying on my mittens?" She came downstairs again and made the tea, put the teapot on the hob. She peeped again into the bottom oven, and the pie became a lovely brown, and it was steaming hot. She sat down before the fire to wait for the little dog. "I'm glad I used the bottom oven," said Ribby. "The top one would certainly have been too hot. I wonder why the cupboard door was open. Can there really have been someone in the house?" Very punctually, at 4 o'clock, Duchess started to go to the pantry. Duchess started to go to the party. She ran so fast through the village that she was nearly early, and she had to wait a little while in the lane that leads to Ribby's house. "I wonder if Ribby has taken my pie out of the oven yet," said Duchess, "and whatever can I become of the other pie?" At 4:15 to the minute, came a most genteel little tap-tippity. "Is Mrs. Ribston home?" inquired the Duchess. "In the porch." "Come in." "Oh, how do you do, my dear Duchess?" cried Ribby. "I hope to see you well." "Quite well, I thank you. And how do you do, my dear Ribby?" said Duchess. "I brought you some flowers." "What a delicious smell of pie!" "Oh, and what lovely flowers! Yes, it is mouse and bacon." "Oh, do not talk about food, my dear Ribby," said Duchess. "What a lovely white tea cloth! Is it done to a turn? Is it still in the oven?" "I think it wants 5 more minutes," said Ribby. "Just a shade longer. I will pour out the tea while we wait. Do you take sugar, my dear Duchess?" "Oh yes, please." We are going to stop there and go on to part 2.